Samumashe. Today we beam our focus on United States President Donald Trump and the rise of populism, as well as the renomination of Ibrahim Magu as EFCC boss. And with me in the studio are Mekneze Faseun, who is a lawyer and public affairs analyst. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I also have here Inibere Effiong, another lawyer. You're welcome.
Thank you.
We have later in the show Tunde Ogala, who is here in the studio. So we'll begin by looking at the newspapers. We'll start with The Nation. The headline: Governor loses looted $10 million to mistress. Security agents probe how cash was diverted. 6 killed as gunmen invade courtroom. Free suspect in commando style. Judges, lawyers, scale fence hospitalized with injuries. Major marketers to tackle aviation fuel shortage through importation. And customs impound 2 helicopters brought in by unknown importer. Choppers handed over to Air Force to fight insurgency. Ondo Assembly sacks Speaker and Deputy. Ikeja bomb blast victims' families lament delayed compensation 15 years after. Royal Tozu, Lukere hosts Ekiti Monarchs, demands official recognition. That is The Nation, the back page. Why Theory Matters by Segun Ayobolu. It's a lot of theorizing here with the ideas of Dr. Dakpo Thomas, Bala Usman, Awolowo, and so on. The Tribune: Amosun visits Buhari in London. And increase in, okay, that is their own story here. Killings: Christians have right to defend selves. Catholic bishops. Missing kidney scandal, our story, a hospital. Unknown persons import 2 combat helicopters into Lagos. Choppers seized by FG handed over to Air Force. Gunmen invade court, free kidnap victim. Ondo Speaker impeached. All right. Saturday Punch. Your silence no longer golden, says Nigeria. That's Khan to Vice President Osinbajo. Says Nigeria not refugee camp for Christians. Acting president will always defend rule of law, says aide. Then the IDP's bombing. 9 human rights groups to sue federal government NAF for 500 billion naira. Buhari hasn't convinced Nigerians he passed school set exam, Junaid Mohammed. Federal lands control. Lagos defeats FG at Supreme Court. FG oil marketers meet, agree on 145 fuel price. Had to be the Punch. And Saturday Sun, anti-celibacy push. We don't want sex. Nigerian Catholic priests reject move that will allow them marry, sleep with women. And then how Igbo can be president by Professor Anya. And then government invade courts. Ondo Assembly sacks impeach speaker and deputy. Then Majek Fashek, hemp, sex, magic, and I. I'm back. All right. And finally, Daily Independent. Gunmen storm court. Free suspect on trial. Men more corrupt than women. Magu. Ondo Assembly Speaker, Deputy impeached. Abia Governorship, Alex Oti gets cause not to join suit against Ikpeazu. Reps raised the alarm over alleged missing $1.4 billion in oil license deals. Two Nigerians swindle UK bank of $1.2 million. All righty. I will do it for newspaper review. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll tackle the dawn of American politics. Donald Trump's rise to power came as a surprise to many who never believed a political outsider would become the tenant in the White House. His mission was clearly articulated from the beginning of his campaign: make America great again. Skeptics will believe he will not match words with actions, but it appears Trump also believes a man's words is his deed or bond. Is it trying to install a new world order? Is this the rise of modern-day populism? Well, what do you think, Inibehe?
The emergence of Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America has redefined the concept of politics, not only in the Western world, but across the globe. And it appears that Trump as the person, looking at his antecedents, someone who had been in the private sector, rose to the apex, a billionaire, a celebrity, without previous experience of public service, coming into such a position. Of course, it was expected that controversy would follow. The populist message of Trump resonates with many people in the United States. The middle class who felt they had been left behind, those who are not too educated, and of course, even those who are racially inclined. So Trump seems to represent a departure from globalization to a populist ideology that is centered on America first, that is centered on the concept that it is the interest of the country before that of any other country or any other adverse interest. So it seems to us that the way Trump is going, if care is not taken, a lot of damage will be done to
the world. Huh?
To the world.
Well, first of all, I think let us look at the whole idea before we go very far. The whole concept of populism. Can you define populism as you understand it?
Well, from my own understanding of populism, it's like playing to the gallery. It's like you want to evoke sentiments of people or the crowd vis-a-vis whatever you are packaging for them. But from my own understanding of the history of American politics, I think it's a great departure, like my colleague has just said. The American history of democracy has been deepened through political dialectics over time. You talk about the writers of the past, talk about the Thomas Paine of the age of common sense, talk about Benjamin Franklin, talk about Thomas Jefferson. If you talk about political ideology, America stands out as having produced some of the greatest, finest minds in political philosophy over time, to the extent that we have the resonation of the Declaration of Independence crafted by Thomas Jefferson, who himself was a founder of University of Virginia, to sell the idea of equal rights to the outside world, and that has metamorphosed into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and then subsidiary legislation like the African Charter of Human and People's Rights, ratification and enforcement. To that extent, America has come a long way, to the extent that well, the 21st century can hardly imagine there will be commodification of political values in the 21st century.
Well, that's a good way of measuring populism. But we must note too that we have different kinds of populism. We have the right-wing populism and we have left-wing populism. The left-wing populism is the populism that pursues liberal ideas like free speech, freedom of movement, equality of all people, and things like that. And we've had instances of that in history of left-wing populism. We had that itself demonstrated a day after Trump was inaugurated, and we saw all those protests across the big cities of the world. Then we have right-wing populism, which itself sometimes rakes up some of those darker symbols of the human soul. Hitler was a right-wing populist, Franco was a right-wing populist, just like Jefferson and so on, they were all left-wing populists. They're trying to get the whole idea of equality and all of that into one. So Trump falls into the bracket of a right-wing populist because of his appeal to race, his appeal to nationalism, his appeal to anti-Muslim, and so on and so forth. So we have that going on, and it's very good for us to get that put aside. Now you said that it is going to disrupt the world. In what ways? What are the policies you think is putting in place that will disrupt the world?
From economic policy, you seem to observe this idea of exclusion, isolationism, to isolate the United States from global trade. You have seen his policy direction, withdrawing from TPP, from NAFTA. These are agreements that brought multilateral trade agreements that brought countries together, Mexico, Canada, and the rest. Trump is saying he's withdrawing from them. And of course, that will have a tripling effect, not only on the United States.
He says he's going to renegotiate NAFTA.
How will he negotiate?
He says he will renegotiate NAFTA. He says he's going to withdraw.
He has already withdrawn. He has issued an executive order withdrawing from NAFTA and...
No, he didn't withdraw from NAFTA. I think what he's trying to say is that he's trying to renegotiate NAFTA. That NAFTA, in the way it stands, is not...
in the interest...
Yeah, it's not in the interest of the U.S. And that what they want to do is negotiate it so that it will favor them.
Well, it does appear the other countries are not willing to listen to that. And you also see his leaning, the pro-Russian, at the political aspects. Trump seems to be in love with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. He seems to have this love for dictators, for strong leaders. They have this concept of a powerful leader. So, and it seems also his presidency will be a threat to the idea of global freedom, the concept of human rights. You have seen even his attack and war with the media, who he believes were never in support of his candidacy. So on the whole, and even his attitude towards NATO, recently he was saying the United States will have limited role in the United Nations. And of course, why, those of us from Africa are quite concerned about imperialism. It is also true that America, one way or the other, has helped over time to enforce certain basic principles of democracy. Trump is not disposed to that. He's not willing to do that. Trump is the kind of person, the way I see him, who will just sit back and watch the world. He's not interested. As far as he's concerned, it is the domestic policy of the United States that matters to him. So that to me is quite dangerous, very, very dangerous.
Well, people have described Trump as a transactional leader. It's not ideological. Some people say it's not ideological, but it's transactional. And that what it says about NATO, what it says about, you know, ratcheting up tension in the world is just a way of trying to, or about China, you know, it's just a way of trying to say, let us come down to the table and talk. We'll talk a big game so that you can come down and come down to its level. And that what he's saying about NATO is just easy. He says, we have been carrying all the burden of NATO. We can't be paying all the bills to defend you. You have to pay just 2%. Eh? And you're not even paying your 2%. So it's not sustainable. Obama himself had been making that point before he left. He didn't enforce it. But this man says he wants to. And he met Theresa May yesterday. And he said it was, quote, and unquote, 100% behind NATO. So what does that tell you of his own view of what? Is it transactional? Is it that he's really pulling out? Or that he's just trying to create an atmosphere where it will browbeat the opponents into his own position?
Well, we may not be able to draw a specific line between what is essentially transactional presidency in Trump and ideological presidency. Because ideology itself, as defined by Dussel, the French philosopher of the 17th century, is the science of ideas. An idea, like Riley mentioned when you were trying to distinguish between right-wing populism and left-wing populism, could be ideological. In the sense that what is ideological? Ideology is the science of ideas. And so when an individual is coming from a particular background, and like an author said that everybody is a product of his background, from a business background, it's seen America as a business that has to work. It's a little bit of a departure from what has been ascribed to be the American values over time, i.e. that you know, you have to look at the downtrodden, you have to look at how your action or inaction affects the other person. To that extent, we are likely going to witness a little bit of drama in the presidency of Trump vis-a-vis international politics, because at the end of the day, how do we define the common good? The common good of our common humanity is what is good for me and what is also good for you.
But he's not thinking about what is good for what is good for America
exactly,
only.
Exactly. And in our humanity today, we couldn't, nobody, in the 21st century, nobody will expect that would be the value of isolationism that is supposed to be pursued. The Reverend Martin Luther King, you know, when in his lifetime said something like, the history of man is crowded with evidences proving that physical coercion is not adapted to moral regeneration. It's about how do I persuade you? How do I get you into this? And we have since found out that one of the major problems, you know, in the world today, that the world is under the threat of extinction, is religion. And religion itself, you know, is flourishes on dogma, and dogma, you know, doesn't all go well for the other person. So to the extent that a president will just think about me, my country, or no other person matters, to that extent, it might be a little bit of a departure ideologically from what had been the tradition that the American values had been noted for over time.
Well, he said that he was going to, he has even issued an executive order called extreme vetting of Muslims coming into the country, coming into the U.S., which means that some certain countries have been identified. I think about 10 countries have been identified already. I don't think Nigeria is there. I'm surprised that it didn't put Nigeria because of Boko Haram, which is a good thing. So they are going to be subjected to extreme vetting. What does that mean? Is America becoming a country of bigots?
It's clear.
Or is that exaggerated? Because you know that Hillary Clinton got about 3 million more votes than
the popular
Trump.
votes.
Yes, got more votes than Trump. And that thing is getting under the skin of the man. And the man has said that because of that, I didn't come out to say that. He said there are a lot of illegal votes. Well, you might find out that maybe the illegal votes were the ones that put him over the top in Pennsylvania Michigan, and one other state where he has only 77,000 votes ahead of Clinton. Those three states put together. You know, what if they found out that those 77,000 votes actually were for Hillary? Now you're coming with extreme vetting, saying that you don't want all these people to come to your country and that you subject them to it. What does that mean for America, I mean, going forward? And for the world?
Trump's presidency, I will still maintain, should be watched closely. What is extreme vetting? The Obama presidency was not too liberal on immigration.
Was not.
In fact, yesterday I was watching a story of a Syrian family that had made efforts to come into the US. It took 2 years. 2 years before they were cleared. And they came in about 2 days before Trump was sworn in. If it can take 2 years for a family to be allowed to be screened and vetted, what are we talking about? America has never been
So the
too
extreme
open.
vetting has been going on.
Has always been there. Trump is just playing to the gallery by this idea of radical Islamic terrorism, playing to the...
Well, he's playing to the emotions of those who voted him in.
Playing to the gallery, because at the end of the day, the world will be under threat if Trump continues the way he's going. The way he's going, his policy on immigration. Look at his issue with Mexico, threatening to build a wall, even canceling his scheduled meeting with the Mexican president. So, for me, some people are quite optimistic. And you see people in Nigeria so excited about Trump, and I wonder why. Because this is a man that, if as a Nigerian you aspire today to go to the US, it will become more difficult with the policy Trump has introduced, the executive order he has signed to allow people to come into the United States. So it's not even in the interest of Africa that Trump is the president, even in terms of the aids that the US sent to developing countries. Trump is not interested in doing so.
Probably will cancel some of them.
Yes.
We don't know yet.
Well, my take is that it might not actually be knock on Trump. Somehow, we have to look at certain things that are exigencies of the world in our time. And that whether we like it or not, history will put each and every one of our actions into perspective and judge us accordingly. There are areas in which our humanity also deserve certain respite from a lot of religious bigotry and things like that. And that is why issue of ideology comes into play. The French philosopher that talks about ideology talks about the science of ideas, i.e. that there has to be intellectual faculties. Those are the elements that must be present for you to talk about ideology. There must be principal phenomena.
Well, but you know that life is not always about what you think. It's
Yes.
also about what you feel.
That's right.
In fact, what you feel is more important than what you think. For most human beings, is the emotion that drives matters. So whether you are saying that religion is about bigotry, religion is about this, those who are religious, they are religious. You can't stop them. You can't stop what they think. You don't care what they feel. You cannot wish them to be what you want because you are a man of reason, and so on and so forth. America has always said that it's a country that believes in reason, but it's a country that has acted more on emotion than reason in all its history. So we have to put that in context. That, we are talking about the beauty and the attractiveness of ideology. We also know that ideology itself is a product of emotion.
Oh, sure. What we are saying is that we are trying to distinguish between the world of ideas and the world of practice, like you rightly mentioned. Sometimes it is important for us to be ideological. At other times, it's important for us to be existential, to be practical, to look at what are the happenings around us. But at the end of the day, the aggregate of our
with regard to pro-Trump, what are the practical things? Because some people believe that, for instance, withdrawal from TPP might even work better for America because it doesn't want to become part of a group and then become subject to their rules. But it wants to be a rule that America itself controls. In other words, it looks like America that started and even triggered globalization is trying to rewrite the script of globalization because it got out of America's control. So rather than have a TPP where you have deals with Philippines, Australia, all of them together in one paper. I want to have a different deal with Australia, different one with Taiwan, different one with China, different one with this, different one with that. So by that way, I write the script. That is what China is doing in that region anyway. Right? China is doing individual. China is not part of TPP. So some people are saying that maybe Donald Trump may just be right.
That's exactly what I'm saying, that, life itself is a pendulum. A pendulum swings to the left and it swings to the right most of the time. So it might actually be out of place to want to crucify the Americans that certain propositions they had made earlier on, they are in a manner of speaking, contradicting it or rewriting it. Are you with me? For every cover you have an obverse to it. For every converse, there's an obverse. Meaning that for every side of a coin, there's another side of a coin. And so if America believes that, the principle of life, as expounded in the famous case of Donoghue against Stevenson, is that you are supposed to, the foreseeability test, you are supposed to foresee what hurts the other person. But at the same time, it's also very important that when Christ says that you should love your neighbor as yourself, you also have to consider your interests first.
We have a call from Taraba State. Hello?
Hello, please. May I know the fate of Donald Trump in Africa as partake his policies, the way he goes about things at the beginning?
Can you take that again?
I say, may I know the fate of Donald Trump in Africa?
The place.
Despite the fact, look at how now situation, the way how he's going on with his policy. Can he going to favor Africans?
Well, can he favor Africans?
Yeah, this is what I just want you to please give me a brief.
Well, that's a good question. Can he favor Africans? For instance, you look at the immigration policy now. They say that it's going to deport a number of them that are in Africa. When they said those who have committed crimes. So you won't say that, criminals, you should allow criminals to remain in your country. But then they say that there are lots and lots of documented immigrants. And he has policy on that.
I see a lot of hypocrisy before even going to the question, I see a lot of hypocrisy in Donald Trump. America is the country of immigrants. We must always advert our mind to that. This is a country of people that came with different parts of the world. Even Trump's wife
is an immigrant.
Is not immigrant.
And Trump himself, he comes from an immigrant family.
So looking at Trump's policy on Africa, I'm not too optimistic. Let's be specific.
He has never mentioned Africa.
He has not. It's not even a priority to him.
He has never mentioned Africa.
It's not a priority. Immigration certainly will not favor us.
But by the way, there have been so many stories online saying that Trump said this about Africa.
It's not true.
He never said anything about it.
It's not true.
It's just...
Well, I think from my own sentiment, like you rightly said the other time, that sometimes we talk about what people think and sometimes we talk about what people feel. My own sentiment, according to, as an African scholar, is that Africa itself should pause and find out exactly how to manage, seek ways to manage their own countries. Rather than
before we seek way to manage our own country, we still have to deal with the phenomenon of Trump, because Trump is there now. We have not gathered our acts together.
Yes.
He is there. America is by far, by all indices, the most prosperous country in the world, the most powerful country in the world. They have the best standard of living. As so many, all indices work on his spirit. Well, we have another call from Kano. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Mohammed?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Mohammed calling from Kano.
Yes. What do you have to say?
Yes, I believe what Donald Trump did, actually maybe it will bring down the superpower from American to the other countries.
It will do what? Hello? I lost it.
Donald Trump policy.
Yes.
What Donald Trump policy is doing, I think
it's trying to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The reason he's trying to do that is simple. He wants to say that Jerusalem belongs to Israel.
Israel.
Just to make that statement, so that you are trying to show that you are not there for peace in the Middle East. You're just there to fight. You have to just make the point that you just want to be a man of trouble. Yeah, well, let's get your final takes on it.
I think it will be unfair to him if we come down so hard on him and just condemn him as just being a man after trouble. People have points to make at any point in time. And for every given, there must be an interrogation.
Well.
So if he decides that for real, I feel that much as America owes it a duty to take care of the world owes it a duty to take care of itself, to look into itself, to look at what are his ideologies, what are its aberrations, what are its excesses, and ensure that we address that.
Well, the terms are not equal. I mean, you cannot say that you want to take care of yourself when they determine what we buy, so we cannot overthrow all of that overnight. So it's a lot of work to do by the rest of the world. They are doing that right now. Obama rolled back a lot during his time, allowed a lot of things to happen because he didn't want to be a hawkish president. He created actually a hawkish world by doing that. So it shows how great an interest the world has in
American
an intrusive America. So if he says he doesn't want to intrude, I believe that Trump is going to intrude more and more and more and more. Because when you say you don't want to do things, you end up doing more. Yeah, your last take on it?
In the final analysis, the Trump presidency will have a drastic impact on the world. Global politics, trade, economy, human rights. We can only watch and see where all this will end, because Trump himself is not too specific. You can't really say this is where he stands. Today he's saying this, tomorrow he's saying
we have shown that he's standing on so many things already. Executive orders are very specific.
Just watch out.
So let's see how it goes. I think the guy is trying to browbeat the world into his own, what he wants. And whether he succeeds or not, we'll see. Whether he's able to bring all the jobs back to all those people that voted him, is yet to see. We have been ushered into a very interesting time. So we'll take a short break and stay tuned. Ibrahim Magu's name has been submitted to the Senate for the second time for confirmation as the substantive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The Magu Senate DSS saga revealed the infighting within the presidency. A harsh report released by the DSS advised the Senate to reject his nomination, indicting him of some level of corrupt practices. Now, his name is before the Senate again. Should we discard the DSS report on Magu as mere malice intended to smear his reputation, or should we ask who is afraid of Ibrahim Magu? I have with me here Tunde Ogala, a lawyer and public affairs commentator.
Yes, sir.
So, what do you make of this?
Who is afraid of Magu? I think for the DSS, by now, I expect somebody to either be out of job or be on suspension somewhere. It's incomprehensible how the security agency could have submitted two different reports,
contradictory reports,
two different arms of government on the same subject. I mean, I don't know how I want to explain that. More so, when it has not been shown, albeit perhaps we don't have a detailed report, that at least a portion of the report, which said that the EFCC chairman or the commission bought a house,
yes,
is the official quarters for X million of naira. And it has not been established that the house was actually allocated to him by the Federal Capital Development Authority. So on that score alone, it is a failure of intelligence by the DSS.
Yes.
On that score alone, let's even assume, though not considered, that that was the only report they submitted both to the Senate and the presidency for that very, very grievous inaccuracy in the reports. The DG of DSS should go back to retirement, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it simply will appear that that report, and if what we also read in the papers are to be believed, that even the two reports were signed by the same person.
Yes, that's what we hear.
By the same fellow. I mean, it's
That's
it's
mischief.
ridiculous.
That's
so
mischief.
For me, I think the president has done the right thing by renominating Magu. I mean, what I believe is telling the Senate, and like I also read, the Senate has also stated its own conditions. What is simply saying is that the report that was sent to you perhaps was inaccurate. Now I have accurate reports. Reconsider your position. So that is an indictment. The president himself has indicted the DSS by so doing.
By renomination.
Yes. So the DSS DG should go home.
Yeah, but there are other stories, you know, about flying with somebody on aircraft, somebody who paid for it, and the fact that that even the man Magu himself went into a house without really knowing. If you are a czar of financial investigation, the house you are staying here, at least you should investigate it and know how did the money move. How did was it naivety on the part of Magu?
No.
I read an investigation, a report by an online medium, Premium Times, that conducted investigation on each of the allegations against Magu. If the outcome of the investigation is to be believed, if we are to rely on SEM, Premium Times said, after reviewing documents, conducting independent investigation, they found all and each of the allegations to be false.
Yes, I think I read that.
There is no credibility in them.
There's none, yes.
We are not saying Premium Times has, or that news platform organization is in a position to have a final say. But if you read that report, the way it was written, and even the way the whole drama is being played, you clearly see a script within some forces in the presidency who are opposed to Magu to frustrate him. There seems to be a conspiracy, and this is where some of us are very concerned, between some persons in the presidency who are working under President Buhari and some forces in the Senate who are strongly opposed to Magu's leadership.
Well, this is a matter of politics. This is a matter. No, wait. This is a matter of politics. This is a matter of politics. We have DSS on one side.
Yes.
They don't want this man. You have the NSA on the other side. Who wants this man? And this report by one of your key guys, I'm talking about the presidency, is made public at the same time you are sending the renomination. What does that tell you about the way the man rules?
The way who rules?
Buhari?
I don't know what you mean by what does
I mean, your men are working to undermine you under your very...
No, I think we seem to be settled on that some of his aides, most especially the DSS DG, has not done well. I think we're also settled that the DG of DSS by now should either be on a long vacation.
Okay, why is he not on long vacation?
Well, that is for the presidency to explain.
Hold on.
My place to
hold
go.
On.
My opinion is it should go.
Hold on. There is the issue of this DSS man.
Yes.
There have been issues of the other cases too that you think that the president should have acted, and it still keeps them.
Let's give examples now.
you have the case of the SGF.
The SGF.
Oh, the SGF
You have
case.
the case of
the SGF
case.
case.
You also have the case of the chief of army staff.
Yes.
Buratai. You see, you get a situation where it looks like it's a reflection of his own style of government.
Let me quickly say this, because I'm not quick to join the bandwagon on certain issues. On the Buratai case, the allegation was that they had a property in Dubai, and the Code of Conduct Bureau had come out to say he had declared the property. So said the Code of Conduct Bureau. So those who had made allegations have only asked questions about where did you find money.
Exactly.
Which
is legitimate.
But again, this was before he assumed the position of the chief of army staff. So when you make
but if you must be above board.
So when you make such allegations, and when you say it's not enough to say where did you find money, it's for you to establish that the money was actually illegally acquired. Many of us do this timeshare things across the world. Then coming to the SGF, I would say the president has done extremely well, in my opinion, especially with that letter written to the Senate. What did the Senate do and what did it not do? We've seen the documents that flew between the Senate and the office of the SGF. When you write to the office of the SGF to provide you with details of contract, and the PAMSEC replied, gave you the details, if you now do further investigations, and in the course of that, you found that the person occupying the office of SGF had actually soiled his hands or had used a company in which he had an interest in conferring some advantages to himself, then you put the allegations before him for him to defend. That is very elementary principles of fair hearing, because it's now bordering on criminal allegation. So it's no longer about the office. It's now about Babacha David Lawal. So you put the allegation, then you invite the Roller Vision, the company that purportedly belonged to him, and you hear them. And that is the purpose of the president's letter, to say, please go further and do further work on this. And perhaps in your final report, you might do something differently. And then for the Senate to have said, sack and prosecute. Nowhere did they say investigate. Their resolution was sack and prosecute. I will further say...
They believe they had investigated.
They didn't investigate nothing.
They believe
Shehu Sani was...
I agree with you.
I mean, and I have been a legislator too. And you do not send the report of a committee as your resolution. If the report is presented, you adopt, you copy it into your votes and proceedings, and it becomes extracts as your resolution. So the Senate, forget about the drama of Shehu Sani, they did a horribly bad job. They breached the principles of fair hearing on the SGS matter. Well, so the president is right to write back to them that I cannot sack, that nowhere in this or your reports was it indicated that you invited the man you accused, because this is criminal accusation.
Yeah.
So coming back to the Magu issue, for me, I think the Senate, yes, we know a lot of politics, but on issues like this, I always want to avoid the politics and restrict myself to what the law says. Because when it comes
you cannot do law without politics.
No, they are different.
Public affairs.
No, they are different.
No, I don't agree with that.
I said, for me,
yes.
I always prefer to face the law. Because there are a lot of speculations. NIA on one side wants him, DSS does not want him, SGF wants him, Chief of Staff wants him, this one, no minister.
The question is why?
All those are in the realm of speculation. But of course, it's only a natural thing when you hold an office like the kind Magu holds. You will be surprised that even in the police, there are many of his seniors who also don't want him. So the forces, and then corruption itself does not want him. So the factors are huge, humongous. Okay. I mean, the Senate president himself, if you look at his matter in the Code of Conduct Bureau, the star witness against him is an EFCC official. So
you're in the realm of politics already. No, you're already in the realm of politics.
That's why I said I always avoid that.
Now, you
I would like to react to the issue of the SGF and to depart a little from what his opinion on the matter. My reason is obvious. It is stated that the SGF had been invited severally.
No.
by the Senate.
Not true.
Well, maybe the facts will need to be clarified.
Not true.
But I do not think the president, had to write a letter which purports or suggests to exonerate when the president himself has not investigated the allegations.
Yes.
The president could have independently investigated the
doesn't have to
SGF
leave it
without
to
resorting to the Senate.
Yes.
But he did not.
The security agencies
He
have
did
not
not clear
investigated the SGF
He did not claim in the
But he has not
letter.
investigated it.
because
said
he's the
you
chief
have to
law
investigate
enforcement
it.
officer
You
of the
have to investigate
federation.
I think we need to be careful here.
So
It's always better.
I don't seem to agree with the position of the president, but I have a concern. Who is really in charge of the country? Are we not ashamed that it is said there are 2 reports on Magu? I refuse to believe that, because if it is true, someone should be fired to misrepresent an issue to the president of the country. The president nominates someone for appointment,
I agree with
and an
that.
agency under his authority submits a report saying don't confirm him. Who is in charge of the country?
Well, you say you are not interested in the politics of this thing, and all you have been saying is actually the politics. The occlusion,
I try very hard to avoid
the
it.
occlusion of politics
But you
itself
see,
is
look,
politics.
only in The Nation yesterday, your newspaper, they published all the letters. The advert put up by the Senate for the public hearing, the letter written to the office of the SGF, not to Babacha David Lawal. I will insist until when you establish a criminal allegation against somebody, it is not personal, not the office. And if in the course of your investigation, they invited once the secretary to the government federation, and the permanent secretary replied of that office, provided them with the materials they needed. When they saw infractions by the occupier of the office, they owed him a duty to now invite
But the
him.
fact that is not in
You are
dispute.
looking
That
at-
the
facts are
company in question, the
was never
SGF has
invited.
interest.
Was never invited.
But the SGF has interest. It's not disputed.
Who has confirmed
What
that?
they are saying is
You
that
are-
he had resigned.
A neighbor.
himself came out with statements now.
You and I are lawyers. You and I are lawyers. Let us talk law.
It is not in dispute.
So you mean you will say the Nation newspaper has been invited, and in the course of investigating the Nation, you found that Sam Omasheye has done wrong, and you will not invite Sam to defend himself
No, you have to.
on criminal issues?
You have to. Well, there are
and
issues
then you
that-
write a report?
There are reports too. We have not confirmed whether
No,
they have
no.
invited or they have not invited.
They did not.
But the point, my
They
own,
did
my
not.
own
You are
concern.
still challenging the Senate if they invited Babacha
The
David
president
Lawal.
does not need the
Ogala.
Senate to investigate the SGF. Given the level of the
It may-
allegation.
it's-
Look,
point
please,
is right.
look at the
You
letter.
don't need the Senate.
Read the letter the president wrote. Let us not speculate. You are a lawyer. Read that letter.
That letter
He has
does not show that he
has
investigated him.
He said, look, you have to have breached so and so. Please go back and put this into consideration in your final report.
But, sir, you know,
if he is
even if-
investigating, if he is investigating or whatever he's doing, the president has responded to a request. Please, not what he's doing. They said he should go and sack and prosecute. And he said, I cannot act on this.
Okay, let's go
Go
back.
and
No,
do further
let's go back
investigations.
to Magu. Let's go back to Magu.
Yes.
What does the Magu thing now? What does it now entail? What does it tell us will happen going forward? Because there are clearly unanswered questions within the presidency.
Yeah, no doubt about
So what do you say? What do you say will happen? I mean, DSS is here. But the point is that there are certain people who don't want Magu there because
not true.
they believe that Magu
It's naturally.
that Magu is going to step on their toes. It's not making them live
it's obvious.
the kind of life they want.
But Sam, you know my
Hold on,
problem
let
with
me-
it.
let it-
Because like I said earlier in the other day, that for the Senate, it might just be an act of self-survival
Yes.
not to confirm Magu. Of course, people say, oh, the war against corruption is not too comprehensive. But this is a man that has shown courage. A man that has moved against powerful persons. So eventually, the buck stops on the desk of the president.
Absolutely.
He is the leader of the country. The DSS, as I had said earlier, is an agency under his authority. And I've also went further to say that the president can overrule the DSS. Why? Section 2 of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act 2004 makes the president the appointing authority. Yeah. Whatever the DSS says, it is only an opinion, it's advisory. It is the president that has the absolute discretion to determine who is eligible to occupy that office. So the DSS, which is under the president, and the president is the chief executive officer of the federation, cannot be ignored. It is for the president to say, this is who I want. But it will be interesting, now that the president has renominated him, for us to see whether the DSS can maintain its position. If that happens, it will be frightening. It will be absolutely frightening. If the DSS will still come out a second time to still challenge the president.
From Edo State. Mike, hello.
DSS by now should be dismissed.
Hello.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Am I on to TVC News? Hello, sir.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Go ahead.
I want to contribute on your program.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's all right. In respect of this Magu, Nigeria, looking at Nigeria by the people that we are, Magu is the best person for the job at the moment. Like we may have some other very good people, but they have not come to the limelight, to the scene of the government. Looking at the people that make the National Assembly and the rest people that government that come to the scene of the government, Magu is the best. National Assembly, as we know, all of them have dents. From the Senate President down, none of them is pure.
All right. Thank you very much. So short final take.
So for me,
me,
contrary to what you said, the appointment needs Senate confirmation. And that is what the Senate is doing, what it's doing. But for me as the president on this Magu matter, if he has sent it back, I believe they will confirm him this time. I do believe. But if they don't, the president must be courageous and leave him there in acting capacity. And to tell those who are even against Magu, let's assume that Magu is gradually taken away. Do they know that the Samoma Shahid that will come next will not be tougher than Magu?
Well, so maybe they want to have their own candidates.
Rather than being about Magu, you should please look at the institution.
Okay. There is no argument about the fact that the confirmation of the Senate is required. That is not in dispute. Section 2 of the Act is clear on that. This is a Senate whose internal budget is mysterious, is not seen. This is a National Assembly that is one of the most corrupt in the country, a National Assembly whose presiding officer is standing trial for corruption. They shouldn't be insulting our collective intelligence. Yeah. Marco should be confirmed.
Unfortunately, they are.
I believe it means well for the country.
Okay, let's go on a quick break and we'll return to read to you an excerpt from my column published in the Nation newspaper titled Dawn of a New Era. Stay tuned. The crowd, as some have said, seemed to call back to the tumult of 1968. Then the young across the United States as well as in France bubbled to the streets in uproar against the system. Saturday's march did not show that much rage, but the discontent was different. While the 1960s was against the system, last Saturday's targeted one man, Donald J. Trump. It was like a movie. And last week, on Friday, January 20, Trump stepped on the stage and became the president of the United States. His opponent, the staid, maligned Hillary, sat as spectator beside her husband, Bill. The guy did not show himself a good guy. He said he did not like people who did not sound like him, who did not color like him, who did not dress like him, who did not worship like him. He fed off his crowds, and they all loved wars, curses, and bigotry. Yet we all looked and thought that somehow the world was too good to embrace such demagogues. The United States Constitution, so superb in its revolutionary impulses for the common good, would checkmate the rise of such a character. Indeed, the Constitution fell first and the people afterwards when Trump won. The idea of the Electoral College was to stifle people like him. Rather, he rolled the document in his palms, and his vulgar psalms made more sense to the people than its homilies. He has now promised to build a wall, but his whole promise was a big war. A war between America and China, a war between rich and poor, a war between decency and barbarism, a war between free trade and fair trade. He has pitched himself on the wrong side of each divide. Yet, if you listen to some of his rhetoric, many who are tribal bigots here at home would have lined up behind him if they were white. The Southern Kaduna crisis is evidence that we are no moral superior. But the difference is that America has always claimed to be the city on the hill, the exceptional beacon of goodwill and integrity, the defender of the better angels of our soul. Trump is saying the world has taken that for granted, and it is time to hit the other cheek. He says he is going to be friends with Putin, but Putin wants to be the initiator and controller of that dynamics. He will find out in time that the man who hacked computers to tilt the polls in his favor wants to be congratulated and deferred to. Putin has no intention to befriend a Trump. The stage is set for a war, confrontation. Many just don't know it yet, but more importantly though, we want to know if Trump will not destroy the world economy by insisting on protectionism when America needs its products to do well around the world. Thank you. That is it for the column, and we'll see you next week. Stay blessed.